Hello and welcome to Black Bear Atheist. Today we're gonna check out a video by Deflate, and the title is "This Atheists Really Don't Like God Because." And I find this kind of video interesting, so we're gonna check it out and see what we can, I guess, get from this.
You're telling me that the God you love and admire has consigned us to eternal torture? Then I would say to that God, you created hell, you go to hell.
Wow, what a line! Hey God, go to hell! Hi guys, this is Lucas from Deflate, where we tackle the skeptics' objections to Christianity. And today we're
I don't even think you tackle any skeptic. You just literally like any other apologetics or Christian YouTuber. You ignore the question, answer something that's not even part of the question, or you completely just ramble on, dance around the question. We've seen this again and again every time. You don't tackle it, you don't actually address it, you ignore it, or you run away from it, or you dance around it.
dealing with a particularly hot topic. As you can tell, this gentleman isn't particularly impressed with the idea of hell. So let's hear him out.
If there is a hell, and if the atheists get to the end of their life and discover, yep, I was wrong, there is a God. This is counterfactual. This is not that I actually believe it. Then you are right. I would then believe and know that there's a God, but that does not mean I would respect or admire a God who would create something like a hell to send someone like me to. And my beloved mother, Patsy Barker, who died as an atheist with a smile on her face, happy that she lived a good life raising three good boys. That deity is torturing her in hell, and Mark Twain, and George Gershwin, and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and Aaron Copland, and Johannes Brahms, and Prokofiev, Margaret Sanger, Bertrand Russell, Carl Sagan, wonderful people who lived these lives. You're telling me that the God you love and admire has consigned us to eternal torture? Then I would say to that God, you created hell, you go to hell. If you want to torture me forever, fine. You prove what a big macho man you are. You do not have my respect.
You do not have my respect. Okay, wow. So this man, his name is Dan Barker by the way, obviously doesn't believe in God. But it's not just the case.
By the way, there's nothing wrong with anything that he said. He said if there's a God and an atheist end up in hell, I mean, I won't go on a rant. I would just be like, okay, it's not like I really care. Eternal punishment, well, it's gonna be eternal punishment in heaven to be worshiping a God like the Christian God to begin with. So if I do end up and I die and I end up getting into hell, I guess I'll just accept it. I'd rather be in hell than in heaven. At least be able to know that I follow where the evidence led and then just believe things on blind faith, which is not a good thing. So there's nothing wrong with that. All that short was based on an hypothetical.
That he rejects the idea of God for purely cognitive reasons. Clearly, he also really
But it is. It's like there's no evidence to back up that there's a God. It's all based on hypothetical. He clearly said if.
dislikes or is emotionally disturbed by the idea of a God who'd torture people in hell, as he puts it. Not only that, but Barker also admits that even if God did exist and he came to meet God at the end of his life, he'd still not respect him, given the fact that there is hell. What this essentially means is that Barker thinks he's morally and intellectually superior to a God who comes up with the idea of eternally torturing people. Here are a
I wouldn't say is intellectually. I wouldn't come to that conclusion. It will be more of morally moral than God, which would make sense because the God of the Bible is immoral. The God of the Bible is clearly immoral. The only way Christians get away with this idea that is moral is by saying and claiming, well, the Bible says it's all good, even though the next second it kills everyone. He's immoral, people. He's a monster.
a couple of things in response. First of all, the idea of hell as a place of eternal conscious torment is not the only way hell is conceptualized in Christian theology. And so a person who is committed to belief in Christianity is not necessarily also committed to the view of hell Barker caricatures here. If
That doesn't matter. A lot of people that are Christians do believe in this kind of hell. That aside, we really only care what the Bible says. And part of the Bible supports the hell that has fire in it, hell with punishment. I'm not even sure what this is supposed to be a refute or a rebuttal. It doesn't help your case. Saying that some Christians don't believe this does not matter. We don't care. It doesn't help your case at all. If hell does exist and God created it, it shows that it's a moral monster. It's immoral and there's nothing good about a God like that. It just doesn't make sense. A liar is going to hell. Everyone that ever did sin has the same level of punishment. It doesn't make sense.
Barker isn't aware of those other views, it's, let's say, unfortunate. But if he is, it means that he went off on his rant for rhetorical effect and not because he
No, because a lot of Christians do believe in a hell that's literal, and that's the people he's addressing. Yeah, there's liberal Christians out there that don't believe in the literal hell, even though the Bible is clear it's a place of either fire, darkness, definitely a place of punishment whenever it's, addressed in the Bible. Some see it as just a metaphor and just a separation for a meanwhile. It doesn't matter. It generally doesn't matter. The issue of hell is a problem if a loving God creates it. And if you can respect that God and love that God and worship that God, it says a lot about you.
actually intended to engage with the question of hell in a serious fashion. Second, there's an interesting thing going on here. God, as viewed in Christianity, is a maximally great being. So if he exists, his intellect and capacity for right moral judgment trump those of Barker. This would be true.
No, not really. There's claims in the Bible that is a maximum good being, but then we look at the actions that he did that people also claim that he did. We look at those actions and we clearly see that they're not good.
Even if hell is a place of eternal conscious torment. In other words, if God exists and if a hell exists that looks the way Barker portrays it, it would still mean that God's reasons for allowing hell are morally and intellectually superior to Barker's reasons against the existence of such a hell. And yet,
No, that would not make any sense. If a good God, it wouldn't be a good God creating hell because hell is not good. A good God will not do a global flood. But then again, these people already lost all their brain cells by just believing everything on faith, even when the thing is illogical.
Barker is claiming that God is a macho man for whom he has no respect. So what's going on here? Of course, Barker is free to not respect God, but it's hard
I
to
mean,
avoid
that was the entire point. It was an hypothetical that if an atheist do die and end up in hell, they will obviously be forced to believe, if they're being honest with themselves, obviously, be forced to believe that God exists, but that doesn't mean they have to respect the God or worship the God.
the conclusion that when it comes to Barker's disbelief in God, intellectual reasons are not the only thing that play into the equation. It reminds me of
Except they are. Let me break it down to you. It's not even an emotional thing. If the Bible claims God is good, God is all loving, and then the next second we read, and he wiped out the entire planet with a flood, saving 8 people. That is not a loving action. Sodom and Gomorrah, not a loving action. No forgiveness in that, just killing everyone. Not a loving action. That's a logical thing. We deduct that from the same text we all are reading. It's not an emotional standpoint.
The late Thomas Nagel, an atheist philosopher who admitted that it isn't just that I don't believe in God and naturally hope that I'm right in my belief. It's that I hope there is no God. I don't want there to be a God. I don't want the universe to be like that.
Who would want there to be a God except for Christians and other theists that are just clearly losing their brain cells by the minute? This God, again, wipe out the entire planet with a flood because he doesn't like the actions of the people. None of us really know what exactly sin they were committing. I mean, God was clearly okay with Hitler killing 6 million Jews, so who knows what exactly they were doing? That is not a loving action, and that's not the kind of God you would want to exist. Now, that aside, there's no evidence of the God even existing to begin with. Nobody should want a universe like that without immoral monster.
Nagel is brutally honest about him not only intellectually refusing the idea of God, but also about him.
Refusing? It's not like he's in denial of the evidence. There's no evidence, actual good evidence that you could say God exists, because Christians, theists, never present any. The Bible is not evidence of a supernatural God or Jesus rising up from the dead. It's just not. You don't have an eyewitness account. The events in the Bible are not reliable. We actually don't have accounts of these things actually happening. All you have is just people making claims and writing it down. That is not evidence of a supernatural God or Jesus rising up from the dead.
Him simply not liking the idea of God for whatever reasons. I might be wrong,
For
but I think
whatever reason, maybe because he kills people whenever he feels like it is a immoral monster, literally. I mean, he's okay with slavery. He thinks women are properties. This is one of the Ten Commandments. I mean, it will kill you for just blasphemy, for not resting on the Sabbath. These are part of the laws that he gave the Israelites. And he will create hell for the people that won't believe in him because he did not present enough evidence to even show that he actually exists.
that's exactly what's going on with Barker. Now, I'm not saying that there is anything inherently wrong with people wanting or not wanting something to be true. For most of us, both Christians and atheists, if we're honest, it's the case that we hold our beliefs both because we consider them to be intellectually plausible and because there's an element of us wanting them to be true. The important thing
I guess you could say that. I don't want a God like the Christian God to exist. You know why? Because when you read the Bible, when you actually read the Bible, you see that is a monster. For that kind of being to exist, we all are doomed. It's just as simple and plain as that.
is to be aware of this and to admit it to yourself and to others, as hard as this
Oh,
may
I
be.
guess I
Check
must
out this
clarify that doesn't mean if I find enough evidence convincing to say God exists or that God exists, that would mean I won't be intellectually and honest with myself to say, yes, a God exists. The Christian God exists. Nonetheless, I would not follow that God. I don't think it's moral enough for me. I don't think he has a moral standard that is actually good. It's shitty and it's immoral, actually.
video for a fun example of an atheist TikToker being completely unaware of her own presuppositions.
I believe I did a video on that. Check it out. It's pretty interesting. Just another weird. arguments from his side. I mean, Christy Burke doesn't need me to actually defend her, but I just did a video on it because it was interesting. But that's all I have for you today. That's enough ranting from me. Thank you all for watching. If you liked the video, click that like button and subscribe. Have a good day, people.